Nezuko Kamado has become one of the most memorable faces to come out of anime in the past decade, and it's not hard to see why. Everything from the pattern on her kimono to the pink of her eyes to the little bow on her head works in conjunction to create an immediately recognizable character. And of course, who can forget about the most notable feature of Nezuko, the bamboo muzzle over her mouth. Her design alone tells you a lot about her. You can tell that Koyaharu Gotake, the author of Demon Slayer, really put a lot of thought into designing Nezuko, and the anime studio Ufotable enhanced that vision to give us a truly iconic looking character. This is why it is a real shame that Nezuko as a character is as wooden and hollow as the bamboo she is chomping down on. In the modern anime landscape, it is no secret that the appeal of Demon Slayer has slowly worn off. More and more people are beginning to take a second look at this anime and manga and bring forth some very valid criticisms of its story, characters, pacing, power systems, and plot holes. The glossy veneer of high-quality animation can only hide the cracks of underwhelming characterization and storylines for so long. While Demon Slayer remains as one of the most anticipated and popular anime of the modern generation, once we set aside the spectacle, is there really that much substance? Are the characters compelling enough to be enjoyed when they're not fighting in glorious 4K? In my personal opinion, I think not. Demon Slayer's characters are astonishingly shallow and lackluster. Nowhere is this more true than with the character of Nezuko Kamado. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, she has a lot going for her visually. She looks very cute and kind, but the bamboo muzzle on her mouth tells you that she is constantly restrained for her own safety and the safety of others. And that's basically it. Seriously, it is very difficult to find another defining character trait of Nezuko other than the fact that she is a kind person who wants to eat people sometimes. The eating people thing isn't even really a problem anymore after meeting Orokudaki, who places an extremely convenient hypnotic spell on her to make her not harm humans. This convenient spell removes Nezuko's primary narrative obstacle. It was a promising start to have her negate her bloodlust through her love for her brother and to demonstrate to Gyu that demons are capable of self-control. It also gives her agency and presents her with a problem that only she can overcome, which creates character motivation. However, this magic spell delivered by an exposition machine disguised as a mentor figure has removed all of the tension and character development that Nezuko could have had. After the hypnosis spell takes effect, Nezuko essentially becomes a Pokemon. She only comes out of her wooden Pokebox whenever she needs to show off how cute she is or whenever Tanjiro needs a hand. It does not feel like there is any urgency in trying to turn Nezuko back into a human because the audience doesn't know how painful being a demon is for her. I'm not saying I want to see Nezuko in pain. I mean, look at her. She is adorable. Who would ever want to hurt her? But it is a shame to reduce a character who was supposed to be the secondary protagonist of the story to just cute set dressing. Rather than having her own story with her own character arcs, her own struggles and motivations, and her own, thoughts, Nezuko's entire existence is built upon serving Tanjiro. Again, much like a Pokemon, she is just there to look cute for marketing and help him out with his battles. Actually, many of Ash's Pokemon have way more personality than Nezuko does. She's more comparable to a Yu-Gi-Oh card. So basically, Nezuko has become the modern day equivalent of the dark magician girl. She is cute and marketable and only exists to help out the main character but has no characterization of her own to speak of. We even find out through an explanation from Lady Tamayo that the childlike persona Nezuko exhibits throughout the story is the result of her consciousness not being there. The Nezuko that we see after Muzan Jackson's first attack is an echo of the original Nezuko. She is not even Nezuko, she is an empty shell devoid of Nezuko with the cognitive processing of a child. I also want to add that this makes Zenitsu's infatuation with Nezuko all the more creepy. Without her personality, her consciousness, or even her own agency, Nezuko moves through the story as a very cute looking plank of wood. ready to attack whenever Tanjiro summons her in attack mode. I also want to point out that I don't believe that Nezuko's inability to speak or even her mental regression are what prevents her from being a full character. In fact, I think there is a great example of a character who, just like Nezuko, has had a trauma inflicted upon them that fundamentally changed them. A character who has also been put into a pseudo-unconscious and childlike state, who can't communicate and can only speak in random babbles. The character that I am speaking about is none other than Casca from one of the greatest manga ever made, Berserk. Much like Nezuko, Casca's presence serves to motivate the protagonist. However, where the two of them differ is in their characterization. Casca is a character with her own thoughts, her own desires, and her own motivations. We actually spend time with Casca and know what she was like before she mentally regresses. Even after she falls into her pseudo-unconscious state and mentally regresses, she doesn't stop being a character. We see through Casca's facial expressions and her behavior that she is trying to communicate what she wants and what she is thinking and feeling. She has her own agency before and after she reverted back to a childlike state, going against what Guts wants and does things based off her own volition, even if it's to the detriment of the group. There are also so many layers to Casca's character. Guts questions if he should even try to bring her back to her previous self because it would mean she would have to remember all of the trauma she experienced. Her pseudo-unconscious state brings up the moral argument of living in a blissful ignorance or living in a painful reality. There is so much depth to Casca despite her limited vocabulary and mental faculties. Nezuko, in contrast, only communicates or acts when the plot demands her to, or again, when she needs to look cute to sell merchandise. She exists as a damsel for Tanjiro to save and a love interest for Zenitsu to pine for, which again, super creepy. She is the cute background image to keep the audience's attention whenever fights aren't happening. Whenever we do get a peek into Nezuko's internal thoughts, it is the same one-note motivation again and again of her mother telling her to be a good sister and protect her brother. She doesn't need a pep talk from her ghost mom to be motivated to do exactly what she has been doing for the entire story. Furthermore, there is no thematic necessity for Nezuko to be mentally regressed and childlike. I know that canonically she's 13 years old, but the way she acts is more like that of a toddler, and that's how everyone else treats her. Unlike Casca, who mentally regressed to protect herself from her trauma, we don't see much reason for Nezuko to regress other than a vague exposition about her mentally focusing on getting over her sunlight allergies, so that means she doesn't have time to regain consciousness. While Berserk and Demon Slayer are completely different stories, Casca is proof that you can create a non-verbal and mentally regressed character while still keeping her a character. There was some hope for Nezuko's characterization. When Nezuko unlocked her demon blood art for the first time in the fight against Rui, it was like getting a glimpse at some genuine character development. It felt like she would actually be a character who does things other than sleep and fight when it's convenient. Seeing her memories and motivations really gave me hope that she would be more than just a Yu-Gi-Oh card. She then proved herself to the Hashira by refusing to eat Sanemi, which gave me even more hope. I was really excited to see how she would develop as a character after this. That was until she repeated the same process during the Entertainment District arc. Nezuko joins the fight to help her brother, gains a new power-up, and has to demonstrate self-control so she doesn't get executed by the Hashira. This is the exact same thing that happened in Season 1 all over again. The Entertainment District was not a point of character development for Nezuko. In fact, it was a moment of character regression for her. She went through the exact same character beats that she did in Season 1, except this time it came out of nowhere and it led to nowhere. Her new transformation was abrupt, unnecessary, and it didn't really lead to anything in the long run. It felt like another excuse to relive the first episode when Nezuko went berserk, except this time the tension is cut because we know that she is not going to hurt Tanjiro because of Orokudaki's spell. We also know her ghost mom is always talking to her about being a good sister, so seeing that again really just feels like a repeated plot point. The newly awakened form she gains in the entertainment district also doesn't have any long-lasting consequences, positive or negative. The threat of her awakened form losing control was completely eliminated in the following arc, where she's able to completely control it without any established screen time showing her doing that. The power that she gains in this form, which was shown to be stronger than an upper moon, didn't really make her any more significant than Tanjiro or the other demon slayers. This power-up she gets is only there because Tanjiro needed to be saved, and to get another hero moment reminding the audience of their sibling bond, which ultimately drives Tanjiro's character more than it does Nezuko's. This takes me to my next point. Nezuko's entire existence is to serve other characters, mostly Tanjiro. Turning Nezuko back into a human drives Tanjiro and acts as the primary end goal of the story of Demon Slayer. We see how hard this journey is on Tanjiro. We see how much his love for his sister, the last remaining member of his family, motivates him to develop and grow as a character. We see nothing from Nezuko's perspective about how badly she wants to become a human again. We are expected through context to interpret that Nezuko does want to be a human, but with a lack of any inner dialogue or thoughts indicating it, we don't really connect with her on that aspect the same way we do Tanjiro. This makes the goal of restoring Nezuko entirely Tanjiro's goal. Rather than being a character with her own goals and motivations, Nezuko is relegated to being Tanjiro's mission. And at the end of the Swordsmith Village arc, when she conquers the sun, she becomes Muzan's mission as well. Now both the primary protagonist and antagonist are fighting over Nezuko, essentially turning her into the story's living MacGuffin. For those of you who don't know, a MacGuffin is a literary term referring to an object in a story that only exists to move the plot forward. Think of the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings, or the Infinity Stones from the MCU, or the Death Note. MacGuffins are tools to be used by the characters in the story and motivate them to progress the story. Usually, MacGuffins are inanimate objects with great power or potential, but in the case of Demon Slayer, that object that motivates the entire plot is Nezuko herself. There are other instances in which Nezuko's character is reduced to a prop to serve other characters. To Zenitsu, she is nothing more than a prize to be won, a girl to marry, and someone he fell in love with just because she was cute. As mentioned before, if you consider her mental age to be regressed to that of a toddler, this makes everything 10 times way more creepy. Nezuko also serves as the beacon of hope for Lady Tamayo and Ubayashiki that Muzan may one day be defeated, once again making her into a plot device rather than a character. To Rui, Nezuko's role was as a surrogate little sister to be used as a doll. Ironically, this is what the story itself does to Nezuko. She does not have the mental capacity to make her own decisions outside of protecting her brother and not hurting humans. She is constantly being used as an object to motivate other characters or to advance the plot. The story makes this very clear by turning her into Demon Slayer's biggest Deus Ex Machina. Deus Ex Machina is a translation from a Greek phrase meaning a god from a machine and refers to a plot device whereby seemingly unsolvable problems in a story is suddenly or abruptly resolved by an unexpected or unlikely occurrence. To further prove my point, I am going to go over all of the instances in which Nezuko serves as a Deus Ex Machina for the sake of the story. Nezuko conveniently gains the restraint not to eat Tanjiro just in time to prove to Gyu that she's worth saving. Nezuko has the spell put on her by a Rokudaki, and now her bloodlust problem is conveniently solved. Nezuko having the 1 in a million chance to be the one demon to conquer the sun because her bloodline is attuned to sun breathing. Nezuko's blood has the magic power to turn a blade red, which makes it extra powerful against demons. This also introduces a plot hole where you have to wonder why Nezuko doesn't always do this, not just for Tanjiro but for the other Hashira as well. It would have really helped out Rengoku. And while we're on the subject of plot holes, why don't all demon slayers put wisteria on their blades, carry around wisteria knives, or cover their clothing with wisteria, or do anything that would take advantage of this extremely convenient demon kryptonite? I know this isn't an original point, but I couldn't make a Demon Slayer critique without mentioning it because it is such a missed opportunity. You have this overpowered plant that insta-kills demons and paralyzes even upper moons, but only this one nerd uses it because she's too weak to swing a sword? Imagine how many Demon Slayers could have been saved if every sword had wisteria on it or Nezuko's blood on it. No wonder it took so long to beat Muzan. The Demon Slayers haven't gained the critical thinking breathing style yet. And speaking of annoying plot elements, this last Deus Ex Machina is the most infuriating one because it perfectly exemplifies what a Deus Ex Machina is. You've probably already guessed it, but it is Nezuko healing everyone from Gyotaro's poison. This moment came completely out of nowhere, had no pre-established build-up, and felt like a complete afterthought from a writer who needed a convenient solution to an unsolvable problem. I'm not here to say that you shouldn't enjoy Nezuko as a character, or even Demon Slayer as an anime for that matter. No one person's opinion on the internet should be taken as an absolute fact, especially when interpreting art. However, to me, Nezuko Kamado is a perfect example of a character that could have been great but was ultimately reduced to a plot device, a prop that other characters could use to advance their own story, and an iconic image that could be used to boost merchandise sales. She's extremely adorable and well designed, but ultimately that does not make her a character. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Feel free to let me know what you agree with or disagree with from the video. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time with more lukewarm takes.